you know, for those people that just are joining us, give us kind of an overview, if you will, of, hey, what are we doing? Why are we doing it? And then let's get into today's topic.
Well, I think as we discussed last episode that we're really just removing the box. We're looking at everything that is before us to look at and talking about what's interesting to us and knowing that it will be interesting to somebody else out there. And how to, for me, the most important thing is how to apply these principles in your life. Because if you're not using them, then they really don't matter very much. They're interesting, they're nice, but it's really about that practical application. And I think that's what we do here. We talk about the practical application in our own lives and in the lives of our viewers.
I love that. And, you know, a long time ago, I started saying, you know, spirituality is not just on Sunday. It's 7 days a week.
24.
You know, and our goal was to provide people that are saying, hey, I want my life to have a much richer spiritual journey, to have another resource in the middle of the week. And so first of all, thank you for being here and sharing your thoughts and your wisdom and your time. I really appreciate that. I want to get into today about something that only you really know what it means. In one of our earlier episodes, you talked about how you had this phobia, and I'll let you describe it exactly, but it was, let's face it, it was debilitating, and it was almost, I think of it like this, Lori, and if this is over dramatic, let me know. It's almost like you were a prisoner in almost solitary confinement for 15 years. And then all of a sudden, something happened and your life totally changed. I want to kind of get in the minutia about this because I know there are people watching who are saying, wow, I have a fear of X, which is a phobia. And if I were to hear what Lori went through and what she put into place and overcame, maybe it will help me. So let's start with, first of all, if you'll just describe what actually happened, and maybe even to the point of, do you remember how it occurred? Or did just one day you woke up and it was there?
It was kind of a slow process. It wasn't all at once, although sometimes it felt that way. I remember blacking out one day, basically, and not remembering, missing a piece of time, and it just frightened me so much. And I was struggling with some illness back then, and so I think probably I was a little chemically imbalanced, and going to be treated for this, they really didn't give me a lot of useful information. They said, you know, you're suffering from this and that, and and you have panic disorder, meaning, you know, you're prone to panic attacks, which I already knew. They didn't tell me any information about panic attacks and what caused them. And I honestly didn't know to investigate. And back then, it wasn't as easy as it is now. Now I would go Google it. But back then, there really wasn't Google. And so it was a little harder to find out some information. And one day, somebody gave me the book, Feel the Fear and Do It Anyway. And in that book, it kind of described the process of why panic attacks happen and what's chemically happening in your body and in your mind and in your brain. And I went, oh, it's a chain reaction. Fear is a chain reaction. It starts and then it gathers steam, and there's a whole bunch of mechanisms that kick into place, and it ends basically with a flood of chemicals through your body, a flood of hormones, cortisol, and all that stuff. And once I understood the mechanism, I went, oh, I could stop that initial response rather than feeding it. And I honestly didn't know that was the case. So I fed it, not understanding that I had a choice. I didn't think I had a choice. I really did not think I had a choice. My body would respond so intensely when I left the house. Sweating, shaking, heart racing. It was a very physical response. And I didn't understand that. It came from my mind, that my mind was causing my body to behave that way. And I didn't understand that I had control over my mind. So what a revelation.
Yeah, you know, we're, as we talk about the science of mind, we talk about, we are we have this relationship with our habits that become us, and
Yes.
really our habits are nothing more than a reflection of our life, or vice versa. And so as you fed that habit, it's like it becomes that little saying, I think it says, when it's fire together, it wires together, it becomes like a super highway. So you were saying you were feeding it, it was becoming stronger and stronger. To what point did it just say, hey, you know what, no longer could you overcome or resist, I guess, the feeling of the panic attack, and then you just stopped going out?
It didn't take that long, to be honest. It really didn't. I was so paralyzed. What happens when you have that kind of, and I think how agoraphobia comes out, is you have panic attacks. And let's say you go to the mall and you have a panic attack at the mall. Well, I'm not going to the mall anymore, because what happens is the next time you go to the mall, your body and your mind remembers that, and it goes, oh, this isn't a safe place, and it will trigger another one. So then, you go to this person's house and you have a panic attack, and then, well, I'm not going to go there anymore. And then before you know it, it's simply walking out of your house and maybe getting into the car. Driving was a big deal for me. I didn't drive for a very long time. It just incrementally made my world smaller and smaller. So I guess you could say in some ways I had the mother of all phobias, because it included a lot under that umbrella.
Did it seem like, as you were describing that, it felt like saying, okay, somewhere in our brain, as you talked about the chemicals being released, it's like, okay, the mall isn't safe for me to go to, and then something that you may have taken as just no big deal. Somebody walking up to you at a party at someone's house, shaking your hand or making eye contact, ooh, that's no longer safe. Is that kind of how the door started closing? I mean, it felt like eventually it's like, hey, no place is safe except at my home. And
Yes.
Now, did you find yourself also restricting people coming to see you?
Not really. I didn't have a lot of people coming to see me, but I did have some. And I still felt safe, like my mom would come and kind of drag me out to get a bite to eat. And I still felt safe in that venue, although it was a lot of monkey mind and it was a struggle. And often I couldn't wait to get out of that situation and get back home. It was uncomfortable. And here's the thing, I thought I was avoiding being uncomfortable. I kept avoiding things that I didn't like. And there are things in life that make you uncomfortable, and avoiding them makes your world smaller, and leaning into them expands your world.
I remember watching and being part of a program, and it said, when most people will turn away from the storm, but the answer is when you turn your sail into the storm. And it sounds like that's what you did. Tell us how you turned your ship into the storm, if you will, and you came out the other side. Give us kind of a step-by-step of, you understood there was a chemical thing going on in our brain, and you actually had you were being controlled by it, but then you said, wait a second, let me get a hold of the rudder and I can control that, right?
Well, yeah, the key was seeing, oh my God, I'm being controlled by this, and who's doing the controlling? I mean, it seems like a simple question, but who's doing the controlling? It was me. It was never outside. All my power out there. I had no clue that I could control my thoughts. My thoughts were happening to me, and I was a victim. To put it bluntly, I was a victim. Something had conspired against me, whether it was my body or my mind or something out there, and I just went, oh, I can't control this, I'm a victim. And then when you feel that you can't control the situation, wow, that really deepens the situation. Because if it's out there, you're in trouble. The second I realized, oh, my mind, it's what I'm thinking causing this to happen in my body, well, that changed everything. I mean, now I was empowered.
Was there a bridge there, Lori, where you said, wait a second, I'm no longer the results of my thoughts, because I am the thinker of my thoughts. Yes. And so if you change that process, you got a different result. Is that kind of what happened?
Yes, that is definitely what happened. So it was twofold. It was education, understanding the mechanisms that caused the fear and the phobia, and how I was growing it. I was feeding it. And understanding I had the power not to feed it. Now, maybe I was still going to have that moment, right, where my heart began and the thoughts were there, and I needed to step back and say, I can go down this path, and I know what's down there, and I don't like it. Or, let me back up, let me breathe, and let me go down this path and see if I can't shift. Now, by that point, because it had been so many years, I had dug that little trench in my brain, right? I had fed it for so long that it took some effort of continually shifting from this to this. And then this would come, and then I'd shift back here, and then this would come, and I'd shift back here. Until one day, I had done enough work where I could say, I am done now. That's I think, the most powerful statement I ever made in my life back then. I'm done now. I'm done now. I'm done with this relationship. I'm done with this life. I'm done with this thought. I'm done with this experience. I am done. And in that moment, just cut that off. No, and I meant it. See, that's the thing. A lot of times you could say, I'm done now, and maybe not mean it. I meant it. There was no option to live like that anymore. I was done, and I meant it. And that was key.
So with this, and again, kind of given that step by step, so you recognize that this closing in was not good, and then you discovered that wait a second, there was a chemical issue going on there, and then realizing, wait a second, you control your thoughts because your thoughts were controlling you. I sometimes will say, again, forgive me, I'm from West Texas, the dog was no longer wagging the tail was wagging the dog.
That is such a good way to say it. The tail was wagging me, absolutely.
And you
I
took
was at
control.
the effect.
Yeah.
I was at the effect.
Yeah.
And the whole time I was the cause, but I didn't know that.
Do you think, and again, I know this is only speculation now, because now you see it from such a different lens, right?
Yes.
That people go through their day, not necessarily a phobia, but they go through their day and they think their life is being controlled by something out there, and they're letting the tail wag the dog when they have the control, right?
That's a wonderful point. And what just popped into my head was that old story about the first picture show when the Cowboys came and they started shooting the screen. I think that is hysterical. I mean, you can't even imagine that now, but they thought it was real. They thought what they were seeing projected out there was real, and they panicked and they pulled out their guns, and and I don't know if that's an old tale or if it actually happened, but I believe it actually happened. And don't we kind of do that in a small way? We think that what's being projected out there is cause to our experience. It's not. It's a reflection. It's a projection. It's all generated internally. That's why two people can be in the exact same situation, and one responds a certain way and the other one responds a completely different way, and they're in the same exact situation. Why is that? What else could explain that? It's not the situation. It's your internal dialogue about the situation.
Yeah.
What conversation are you having?
Yeah, we have that foundation, if we will. Thoughts become form. And sometimes I know when I was new to the teachings, thought becomes form. It's like, okay, that's it. And that's kind of what you're going through. Your thoughts became form. In other words, it closed your world in.
Yes.
But I think there's this introduction to that of saying, and you and I and anyone watching actually control the thoughts that go in to create that form.
Yes.
Right?
And our beliefs underneath our thoughts. That's what creates your thoughts. You got to look at what do you believe, because all your thoughts come out of your beliefs. So you can easily look at a thought and say, well, what must I believe in order for this to be true in my life? What is the thought behind it? What is the assumption or the conclusion I'm making in my own life that is then generating the thoughts?
Well, Lori, obviously now you're on the other side of this. And, tell us what your life is like now as to compared to then. Obviously, it filled a little bit more joy, yes?
Yeah, it's It's almost indescribable to me. I mean, I'm just realizing on Sundays they put a slide up on sometimes that says, your story can inform somebody else's life, can help somebody. And so I haven't really told this story or shared it a lot since I've lived out here about overcoming agoraphobia and just how far my life has come and has changed. And I wake up now and I just am almost disbelief, except I don't disbelieve because I created this life and I created it step by step with every thought, unearthing every belief, looking at every assumption I have about life. It has been work, and I have put the time in, and the results have been, it's incomparable, my life, what it was to what it is now. I had a string of just relationships. I mean, different guys, different pair of pants, same guy. I went through that for a long time. And then one day I said, you know what? I need to love myself. I need to be the person I want to attract. I'm going to work on me. And if I never attract a relationship again, I'm okay with that. I let it all go. And I did the work, and I met my Prince Charming. I mean, I met my husband of 13 years next week. He is the most amazing man. I could have never imagined such an amazing relationship 20 years ago. It was a string of, as I said, really tough, a lot of learning. All good, I learned a lot, but I'm so much happier where I am now. And everything I do, there's just a joy that is the base of my life. And my goal is to always allow to look at everything with curiosity, asking myself questions about it, not taking life personally, but actually just observing what is before me to observe, and then tweaking, just making little changes, shifts in what am I doing that had me thinking this, and that thought attracted this. I don't like it. Let me just shift a little bit. Kind of, it's a journey where you're going back and seeing, where did that start? And then making the shift. And there's a lot of things we believe that aren't true.
Yeah.
I mean, we hate to think that, don't we?
Yes.
We like to think everything we believe is the absolute truth because I believe it, it must be true.
Yeah.
It's not. There's so much we believe that is not based in any sort of reality, but it's just something that at some point our mind landed on. And if you don't question, you'll never know if it's true.
So let me ask you a question, and just to kind of put a ribbon on this. If those people watching are saying, should you tell them or suggest them, look at your results now in your life. If those are not the results you want, don't just say, I'm going to change, but go back and discover the thoughts, the beliefs, because that's what caused that.
Yes.
Is that fair?
Yes. Look at what you're thinking about, but also look at what informs your thoughts. What are your beliefs? What do you believe about the world? Einstein said we only have one decision to make. We either live in a world that is loving and supportive, or we live in a world that isn't supportive, that is against us, or it certainly isn't for us. Which side do you fall down on? I think I lived in a world there. I believe there was no support. I was on my own. It was just me, and there was no help out there. And it was lonely, and it was scary. And then when I realized, oh my God, the world is for me. The universe is for me. There is support that is everywhere through other people, but this is energy that supports anything I choose. It gives me anything I choose, and I'm willing to focus on and back it up by the belief that that is so. Everything's possible. What a shift to make. So do you believe that you live in a world that supports you, that is loving, that is present, that is creative? Or do you believe that life happens to you? Because that's the first fundamental belief to look at. Which one of those is true for you in this moment? And then know you have a choice. And it takes some effort and some time. You'll start down this path, and then you'll have to stop and come back and nope, this is the one I've chosen. And that will happen over and over again for a while, but you get, instead of going way down here, you'll just go, dee, dee, oh, wait, nope, don't want that, let me go in this direction. It takes practice, it takes diligence, because you are literally rewiring your brain. Science has proven that now. There's so much more information out there now than there was 15 years ago or 20 years ago. Well, actually, I guess, oh my goodness, it's over 20 years ago. There was very little. I mean, Google wasn't around yet, and so it was difficult to find information. Thank God somebody gifted me with the book Feel the Fear and Do It Anyway. That was key for me to read that book and say, oh, I have a choice. I thought feel the fear meant run inside and hide.
Yeah.
I don't want to feel fear. Why would I want to feel fear?
True.
Yeah. A couple weeks ago, my first talk here, I was backstage and I was like, oh no. But I knew that within me, I could choose to focus on being a contribution. I could choose to have a different conversation. I could choose to just come out here and face my fear of standing up in front of everybody and have a good time. And I had a great time.
You did great.
It was completely different than I expected. I mean, I really enjoyed myself. But that's because my brain is now wired for enjoyment. Doesn't mean I never have fear. It just means I say,
Face it and go on.
yeah, oh well. There it is. Thank you for sharing.
Well, Lori, speaking of thank you for sharing, we really appreciate it. I know this is going to touch some people out there specifically for them to help them overcome what they are facing, or maybe it's someone close to them that they're just going, I don't know what else to do. And this may be just that process of realizing a phobia does not have to be a sentence that has no end to it. It can actually be a pathway to greater things happen in one's life. So I want to say thank you for joining us today and sharing this. This has been amazing.
No, thank you, Jeff.
Thank you. And I want to thank you for joining for another episode of Spirituality Uncorked. Remember, this is brought to you by CSL Palm Desert here in Palm Desert, California, on the corner of Shadow Mountain and Portola. And we'd love for you to come join us on Sundays. We're here right now at 10 a.m. on Sundays. Here in the fall, we'll get back to the two services, one at 9 o'clock and one at 11. If you can't join us physically, we'd love for you to join us on live stream. Just go to cslpalmdesert.org and you'll see right there where you can join us. In the meantime, if you like this, please like the button below and share it with a friend. And we'll see you again next week on Spirituality Uncorked. Thank you, Lori.
Thank you, Jeff.